So germinating your little seeds is the easy part. Keeping them alive is the difficult bit. And yes, I managed to kill almost all of mine. So rather than let that lovely learning experience go to waste, I'm going to tell you what I did wrong, and I'm going to take you through the next stage with your seedlings. We're going to prick out and pot on into bigger pots, and I'll tell you why, because it's really important. So as you guys can see, at the minute it all looks fabulous. There's lots of seedlings. These are not the seedlings that I sowed in January. These are in fact the third lot of seedlings I have sown. Well, at least most of them are. So basically I had two disasters with the seedlings, both of them 100% my fault and avoidable. So I'm going to tell you guys about it because it's all a good learning experience. Firstly, these little module trays do not hold a lot of moisture. So what I've been doing is taking them out of the Vitapod, putting them in one of my green trays and giving them a good old water. And that's what I did. Except my huge big muckle size 7 feet, because yes, I'm 5 foot tall with big massive size 7 feet. I wasn't looking, I turned round, took a step and I kicked the entire tray over. All the soil with the seedlings and the new seeds I had sown all over the greenhouse floor. Not savable because I then stood on stuff and it was just guys, it was just horrible. What can I tell you? I had to re-sow, but it's okay. In the Vitapod, they all come up brilliant, looking great. Next disaster. It was great last year, working from home. I was here all the time. My garden looked fantastic during lockdown, but I'm back on campus now. So remember the comment about these little module trays don't hold a lot of water? Basically, what happened was leave for work in the morning, leave for work about 6:30 in the morning, it's pitch black. Get home from work about 5 o'clock in the afternoon and it's pitch black. So I don't really want to be out in the garden. So I did that and I didn't come out and check on the seedlings because they had been fine the day before. But again, next day into work and back again, didn't check on the seedlings. What I hadn't realised was they had completely dried out. And when I did check on them, lots of little dried up dead seedlings. So I had to do it again. So do learn from my mistakes. I'm going to take you through how you can prevent that because, if I hadn't been lazy, I could have sorted all of that. And it's by pricking out and potting on. Or, I think in the US, you guys will say transplanting. But all it is, it's this simple. You take your tiny little seedlings out of these little spaces and you put them in bigger spaces. That's it. Nothing fancy to it. But why do we do it? That's what's important. So, why do we prick out and pot on? Quite simply, there's 3 reasons, but they're all tied together. So as you can see, there is next to no space here for these little seedlings to grow, okay? So they're now filling that space and they need a bigger space because they need space in order to grow and get bigger and get healthier. And if they run out of space, they'll just stop growing until they give up. Second thing, you guys know I mentioned it before, the seedling mix that I make and that you buy isn't full of nutrients. So whatever was in this little space, these guys have now used it up and they're desperately needing nutrients, especially now, as you can see, they're properly starting to grow and they're putting on their second leaves or their true leaves. They really need that nutrition. And thirdly, I've already said it, this does not hold a lot of moisture, and as these guys get bigger, they're going to need more moisture. When they're tiny little seedlings, they don't need a lot of water, and the biggest problem a lot of people have is they overwater. But as they get bigger, they will need more water. So I'm going to move them onto bigger pots. Simple as that. So I've got my handy dandy potting tray that just keeps everything tidy, and I've got some bigger pots for them to go in. Now this is the next size up that I have, and just a note on these because you guys ask me a lot when you see things in videos, where did I get it? There is always a link in the description to my videos. It's a link to all of my stuff, okay? So it's in there and it's all headed so you'll see it. But these are from Container-Wise, okay? So there'll be a link to these as well in any video I talk about them. But, and this is really important, guys, don't just go and buy things because you see me or anyone else using them in a video. I will say categorically for the new guys, the guys that have been here a while know this, I do a lot of testing and experimenting because I'm a gardener first. I do YouTube videos second. So my garden is the most important bit and I'm always testing new things. Unless I tell you that I recommend something, I'm just trying it out and using it. So don't just jump to buy things because you see that I've got them. I might try it and decide it's awful and get rid of it. And then you'll see me use something new. So unless I tell you I recommend something, don't assume that I'm recommending it, okay? So I'm doing this for the first time with these guys. I haven't had a whole season with them yet. So at the minute, I can't tell you if these are going to be any good or not. Just to warn you, okay? So I'm going to fill these with soil. Back to the bit that's actually important and we wanted to do. I'm going to get potting on. So the first thing then, you're moving them up to a bigger pot. So let's get these filled with my potting mix. And while we're talking about potting mix, if you saw my seed sowing video, then you guys know that I made a specific mix for sowing my seeds. I don't use that same mix for when I'm potting up because the plants now need nutrition and they need more moisture. So I don't want it to be as free draining and I also want it to have more compost, more nutrition in there. Okay, so this is my potting mix that I'm now using. If you've never made your own potting mix before, I took you guys through it last year, so I'll link that video at the end of this one. But all I'm doing is filling this with my lovely, nutritious, still free draining, perfect, gorgeous potting mix that I have made for my plants. Let's make everything wobble. So all I'm doing is I'm tapping it to get everything to drop and getting rid of any air pockets, because you don't want air pockets because they're bad for the roots. And I'm firming it down, again, getting rid of air pockets, but also you want these seedlings to be able to take root in there and it to be nice and stable for them. Another appearance by the fabulous lime green potting on tools the cats bought me. If you don't get that joke, there'll be a video at the end that'll explain it. So all I'm doing is making a wee hole that my seedlings can go in. I'm pre-making the hole because I want to disturb and damage my little seedlings as little as is possible. So when then do you prick out and pot on or transplant your seedlings? You will actually hear people tell you different things about this, okay? Some people wait until it's got its first true leaves, so the second little set of leaves that come in. Other people do it just when the plants look healthy and that you could handle them without damaging them. There isn't really a 100% you must do it this way type of thing. It's going to be up to you. But the most important thing is that your plants are healthy and strong enough that you can handle them, and that you need to do it before they're too big for the space they're in, or you'll end up with the problems that I had. Simple as that. Now, you also will want to think about, you get different types of modules, pots, trays, the different ways you're going to do this. So I'm going to take you through as many of these as I can, just so that you guys are aware. But firstly then, these, I've said, are solid, okay? So if you use the little lightweight plastic ones, the kind of standard way you do it is you press them from the bottom and those little pots kind of fold and give in and crinkle, and that helps you push them out. With these ones, because I can't do that, there are holes in the bottom that I'm going to push out from the bottom. Now, they're a wee bit small, these ones, so you might not be able to get your fingers in them, in which case you can use the end of your dibber or whatever to get in there. But the first thing you want to make sure then, if you can, just a gentle wee push at first to see if there's any give. If there isn't any give, then you want to loosen that off. So just get a sort of something thin like your plant labels, get them in the sides to just loosen that soil, because you don't want to then pull the little plant and tear it. You want to make sure it's loose, okay? I'm going to push up from the bottom, okay? I am not going to touch this stem. If you damage that stem, it is good night Vienna for that little seedling. What I'm going to do is take it by that leaf. So you can see there, it's all holding together, and these are the true leaves coming through. These big ones are the baby leaves. It tears off, its little secondary leaves are coming through, so it's not the end of the world. These baby leaves will actually die off and fall off anyway, so it's not the end of the world. I'm going to take as much of that soil as I can, because it will help to prevent transplant shock, putting it in brand new soil. It lets it just acclimatise, and I'm just going to put it into the little hole. One, done. I'm going to do this for the rest now. Okay, the next ones I'm doing are tomatoes, so I want you to see this. Tomatoes are really obvious when they get their true leaves because they're a completely different shape. So you can see that the baby leaves look just like the pepper seedlings. Seedlings often all look the same. That's why we label things. But you'll see here, these tomatoes have now got these kind of frilly leaves, if you like. That's their true leaves, and these straight ones are their babies. So that's how you know. So again, same thing. Holding by the baby leaf and taking out the whole plug. This little guy, you can see, has an awful lot of stem and not a lot of leaves. It's what we call leggy. This happens when a little seedling's not getting enough light, so it's reaching, trying to find the light, and you get this quite often with plants that are grown indoors. I suspect this poor little guy suffered because he's got the big label in front of him and he maybe wasn't getting the light as well as the rest. Not the end of the world, especially with things like tomatoes. So if this happens to you, you can plant them deeper, so you can plant them right up to the junction of those first leaves if you want, and all of that stem will then develop into roots, and it will then sink the plant down, it will stabilise it, it will give it lots of extra roots, and it will let that get a second go at life. Okay, so don't panic. Last thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to give them a wee water before they go back in the Vitapod. Now, you guys asked me about this recently. It's just a pop bottle, but I've got these little nozzles that you can put on top that give you a really fine spray of water, if you like. The reason I use them is because these little plants are all tiny, so the last thing you want to do is hit them with a hose from a watering can, because it's quite powerful and it can actually damage these. So I'm just wanting to make sure they can get a good water, but I'm getting in and watering around them and not as much as hitting the actual little plants, just to try and protect them a little bit. So that's all that is. So there we go. So the next thing I'm going to do then is a bit different, and I'm going to show you the same process, but I'm going to prick out and pot on, but from a seed tray, because there's a trick that I want to show you guys. So I'm going to show you this. I've got this little tray of dragon's tongue mustard that I've been bringing on, and you can see there are a few different plants in there, and they're all together because this is where I did the broadcast seed sowing. So I want to show you this. So I'm going to put the label in here because I'm going to put them in here. But one of the things you'll find when you prick out plants that are all in a seed tray is the roots will intermingle and grow together, and you want to prick them out and move them on before that gets too bad. In fact, you probably want to do it before it happens, but I've been lazy. So I'm going to do it here. So I've got a little collection here that are all together, and I know they'll be all stuck together. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to loosen all the soil around them. I'm not going to focus on one plant. I'm going to focus on loosening all the soil. Okay. And it's the same thing again. Try to pick things up using the smaller baby leaves where you can. What you'll see is they're all together, but I don't want to just pull that and rip all those roots. So what I do is I just shake it, and you'll see gravity does the work. So that soil is actually falling off those roots, and that will naturally separate them. And what I've discovered now is there's 3 there, not 2. And we keep doing that. And I'm making a mess, so I'm going to do it here. And there we go, the first one, second one. So they naturally come apart and there's less damage that way. So again, I'm going to get these in here. So you just make sure the roots fall into that hole I've made, and we're just making sure to pack the soil back around it. But again, same as before, we're not pressing those down into the wee holes there because we could damage the roots. Tray of dragon's tongue mustard done. So before I shoot off then, I said I was going to recommend some videos for you because there is so much you can learn from watching this process with different plants, different years, because, you know, different size plants and everything. So the first thing I'm going to recommend then is this video I did last year, and that is me potting on my little peppers and tomato seedlings in here last winter, but I go into it in a bit more detail. And I'll put that here. I'm also going to give you this one, which is me potting on the tomato plants when they're much bigger and ready to go into their final pots. So you'll see me dealing with that in a slightly different way because it's from a few years ago now. And the last one is this one, and that's me making my potting mix. So if you guys want my recipe and to make your own potting mix, it's right there. So there you go, guys. Lots of useful info so you don't kill your baby seedlings like I did, because there's nothing more gutting.